Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we decided we were going to talk about nutrition again. Seems to be the only thing I know anything about, so that's probably why. But we thought we'd talk about kind of like the history of diet, kind of, and our opinion on that.
Yeah.
Mikey, you've done quite a bit of research from what you've told me. You've written a few notes.
Hold up. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So I tend to, if I start researching something, looking into something, and I decide to make notes on it, like a lot of the time I tend to, if I don't get kind of, how would you explain it? Sometimes whenever I look into stuff, I get completely swept away. And
Yeah.
whenever I should have, like 5 or 6 bullet points of notes, yeah, I end up with
5 or
4 or
6
5
pages.
pages of notes. Because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And just, I keep building it up.
Yeah.
So I have many
Well, that's the way
pages.
it should be. Like you said to me before that you're not really into education and research and all that kind of stuff. But if it's something you're genuinely interested in, it's hard
Yeah.
not to get excited about it and do a lot.
Yeah. The problem is the initial, my problem's always been, and it's the same with training for a lot of people. Now, I've always been interested in training since I started.
Mm-hmm.
But for a lot of people, it's motivation over conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Or motivation over discipline, but
Yeah.
conditioning is discipline. So,
Yeah,
and
there
it's
was an
this,
interesting thing I heard
it's
about
the same.
motivation and discipline.
It's the same with this kind of stuff where you start to research something, you're like, this is so interesting, you get really into it, and you only get so far before you go, can't be arsed watching another video on that.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting thing I heard about motivation versus discipline. And it was you need motivation to begin discipline, and you need discipline to stay motivated long term.
Yeah,
So motivation is the short term product of discipline. Discipline is a long term product of motivation. So you need
yeah,
to motivate yourself at the beginning to become disciplined, and then you need to be disciplined to stay motivated.
yep,
So it's one of those interesting
yeah.
feedback loops.
At a point, the discipline overtakes motivation. Your
No, the
discipline,
discipline becomes your motivation.
well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because you're disciplined enough to go, I don't want to do this, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then you feel good after it, and then maybe the next day you're like, I felt great yesterday. Yeah, I can't wait to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of the times I don't feel like I want to go for a run. I go for a run because I'm trying to discipline myself to do it.
Yeah.
When I do the run, I'm finally motivated to do it.
Yeah.
There's very few days that I actually wake up going, you know what? I really want to run.
I did today, and I'm going for a run after this. But that's possibly because it's the first day in. How long have we been in lockdown? 10 weeks?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, so it's the first day in at least 6 weeks that I've been awake in the AM, so.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'd go for a run,
Without
but
staying up all night.
my run day is normally tomorrow. Maybe I'll just do one today anyway, but
Oh, do you want to go for a lockdown run?
an easy run?
Yeah, yeah. I'm still rehabbing my ankle, so
Okay, what distance?
I don't know, 5K,
Yeah,
3K,
sure.
wherever we feel
Maybe
like.
after. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll hash it out after this.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, back to the topic. So,
Yes.
I started looking at diet through history.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of was thinking to myself, what's the best way to look at it? Because I've seen stuff before. We've talked about some stuff before on here. Where humans started, what they started on. Obviously, both of us are quite are fair advocates of meat-based diets.
Yeah. And that's the best way to put it.
We don't hide it.
Just pure carnivore.
Yeah. I mean, whatever diet works for you, but we've both found that higher meat quantity diets work far better for our bodies.
Yeah, based on my research, it's generally better for everybody to have a predominantly meat-based diet, whereas currently they're trying to tell you a plant-based diet is the best way to be.
Yeah. So I obviously we already know some bits about it, but I went back and I looked at diet through history from the start. what I found was, so obviously a lot of people talk about the caveman diet,
Yeah,
and the cave,
paleo diets and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah, and paleo diets, caveman diets are all based on you can't have anything processed, so you can't have bread because it's wheat. Wheat comes from farming.
Yeah.
I mean, well, it doesn't come from farming, but that's how it came to be. You know, like breads,
Well, in the quantities that we have, yeah,
yeah, breads
you
and things
needed
were
it
produced
needed
after
agriculture in
farming was
order to become a
invented.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without the
Um,
advent of agriculture, we wouldn't have bread and other refined things like sugars and other stuff.
yeah. So, caveman diet is basically you can have anything as long as it's a vegetable or a meat. Most people, I believe, stick to mostly meat and light vegetable whenever they're on paleo
Uh-huh.
because they
And
want
fruit,
to,
some fruit.
yeah, and some fruit because they want to keep carbs and sugars as low as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
I would argue fruit is probably better for you than vegetables.
vegetables, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what I found out actually, which was quite interesting, something you probably already know, was uh, honey.
Hmm.
Honey has been a main source, a main part of human diet through all ages.
Yep. I
Um,
love honey. Honey's the best. Only if you get raw honey. There are
yeah,
lots of different enzymatic and bacterial compounds in honey that
yeah.
is good for you.
Plus extremely high in energy.
Oh yeah, it's pure glucose as far as I'm
Yeah,
aware.
yeah.
Something the body can easily absorb. So it's not fructose or sucralose or anything like that. It's glucose. I'll actually have to double check to make sure I'm not lying.
No, I'm pretty sure it's glucose. I didn't look into it, but I'm pretty sure it is. So humans started farming, basically farming. They went out. They would take 2 to 3 hours a day to find honey, and humans only really started doing this after the discovery of fire. Because not everyone will know it. Most people will know this. Not everyone will know it, but how humans got honey traditionally was they would find a bee's nest, a
Uh-huh.
beehive, and they would light fire. They would light a torch and they would hold it up to the beehive to smoke it out. So all the bees
Yep.
left, and they would take the hive and they would harvest the honey from the hive.
Hmm.
Um, but that's also where us as human beings started to develop really fast. Was the invention of fire.
Okay.
So there's several points where they think that we started developing at a faster rate. Because obviously, human evolution, if you look at evolution, if you go from the very start, millions of years, slowly increasing to a hominid form, and
Uh-huh.
then there was a point where um, the intelligence and the growth levels of our species became a lot more rapid. Uh,
Okay, so are you saying that fire came before eating meat?
no, so they were eating meat, but they weren't. Uh, First of all, we would have eaten meat, but it wouldn't have been harvested. It would have been, oh look, there's a pig, kill it, and just tear into it. You would just bite at things. Whatever was in your mouth was what you get. And then uh, at some point, and not just our species, not just the humans we know today, and our ancestors, obviously all hominids, at some point discovered, or most hominids discovered, do you know what? I can use this rock that's got a sharp edge to carve meat from this kill or this body that we find. So they started carving meat, and that is suspected to be a point of mental growth.
Okay, I'm going to correct it just a little bit. Um, the early estimations of what human beings were initially scavengers. That we didn't actually hunt anything at the beginning. So we would, after a bigger, scarier carnivore went and killed an animal and ate all the organs, we would go in after the
Yeah,
fact and eat the rest of the animal flesh.
yeah.
We didn't actually hunt them ourselves. It was only after we started eating meat
Hmm.
that we became a bit more intelligent, started using other tools. like stone tools to actually start carving away things, and then eventually developing into weapons so that we could hunt our own animals and then or hunt our own food.
Yeah.
And we developed other. Again, this is over the course of thousands, if not millions of years.
Millions. Yeah.
Where we eventually, we developed teamwork as well, which is something that human beings have done.
Yeah.
But this was thanks to initially eating animal
leftovers. Yeah.
Yeah, from scavenging. That's why our stomach pH is so high.
Yeah, I should have made that clear.
Yeah, from scavenging. So
yeah,
human beings, our stomach acid is like at 12 on the pH, which is the highest, I think, as in the animal kingdom with vultures. So again, as a scavenger.
Yeah.
Other carnivores have high pHs as well, but ours is even higher again than theirs.
Yeah.
Because there's utility in that, because the high pH kills certain pathogens and bacteria and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which meant there was easier to digest rotting meat without getting sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Minecraft zombie flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then there was the invention of tools. There was the invention of hunting, where we started to make weapons, which was obviously a sharp stick. A rock tied to the end of a stick.
Yeah, a shattered rock that has sharp edges. We use them to cut the meat off bones and things like that. And then whenever we managed to harness fire, we were able to unlock the calorie more properly.
Yeah.
By cooking the meat and cleansing it with heat rather than acid.
Yeah, and that is when human evolution took a massive jump.
Mm-hmm. And with our stone tools as well, that gave us more access to other things like the brains, because other than human being, I think hyenas have the jaw strength, enough jaw strength to actually crack open a skull, but because we had stone tools, we could smash open skulls and eat brains. And that helped us with the development of that. Other birds, I think the smarter birds lift it up really high and drop it down to smack it open, like vultures and things like that. So they had access to those sort of things.
Yeah.
Like brains and marrow.
Yeah. And that leads to the point where not all hominids were ate meat. There were ancient hominids who were vegetarians. They just lived off the land, whatever they could find, nuts, berries, fruits, vegetables.
Where are they now?
Not here.
Yeah.
But our ancestors likely did interbreed with them at some point.
Probably.
There are some theories that we're only here because we were basically like a combination of all ancient hominids, but I don't know how much real research there is into that. But I did see a theory about it, and I don't know if it was just some guy saying, this is what I think.
Yeah, we're not research scientists that deal with that kind of stuff, so we don't know for sure.
I mean, it's entirely possible, I guess. Yeah. And there are DNA tests that I've seen that have proven that people have like slight Neanderthal genes and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, those ones are easy. You can tell that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals bred together.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a theory that I lost my train of thought. There was a theory about energy, and that the human brain was larger than any comparable mammal. So basically, due to size and weight, if you took like a pig and compared the size of a pig and a pig's brain to a human, a human is a much, much smaller creature, but they have a larger brain. And they were thinking, for a while they were thinking that was due to energy. So we needed far higher energy, which meant that we needed to eat meat. And whenever we started eating meat and cooking it, it fueled our brain so efficiently that our energy was super high and we were able to just go do things. And all of a sudden, our brain was getting so much energy, it was able to think so much more efficient. I believe that was disproven since.
No, actually, there's something called the expensive tissue hypothesis.
Yeah.
So what are the two most expensive two most expensive systems in the human body when it comes to energy? You've already named one.
Yeah, your brain and probably your skin.
Your skin, no. Your digestion.
I was just thinking because it's the largest organ.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah, no, digestion.
Yeah, your digestive system takes
I was
a
just
lot of
thinking because
energy.
your skin's always having to repair and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but those are the two main things: your brain and then your digestive system. So the big difference between us and herbivores, they have massive guts. Look at cows; they have 4 stomachs, and they have various different fermentation processes
Yep.
processes that they go through in
Mm-hmm.
order just to consume grass. Same thing with other ruminant animals.
Yep.
We have a large brain and a smaller gut. So if
That's
you think,
yep.
yeah, so if you think about when it comes to your food, and you are what you eat is one of those common sayings. Plants have a different operating system when it comes to the structure of their being. We have a different operating system because we're mammals and animals and like plants have things in it that we can't absorb. They need to be fermented first in order to be converted into things that we can use, and that's the point. The whole purpose of a cow having the 4 different stomachs, so that each stage has a slightly different bacteria
Yeah.
fermentation process, converts it into something that they can use. We don't have that function, so we need to go directly to the source, which is the animal base that had already been made for us. So the cow has already produced those
Yeah.
things that we can absorb.
Yeah. So the cow eats the grass. The grass breaks down in the cow's 4 stomachs. We then eat the cow, therefore absorbing the nutrients from the grass.
Yeah, so they convert the plant operating system into an animal
Yeah.
one that we can actually eat and digest.
Yeah.
When we have a lot of fiber in our gut, that has to ferment.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get gassy. You eat a lot of, spinach and kale and whatever the hell you want to eat. Your
Yeah.
body can't really do too much with that. It's insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. Goes through your gut. Body breaks it down into something that the bacteria in your gut breaks it down into something it can use.
Yeah. Well, that was actually one of the theories was as our brains got larger from extremely efficient energy from cooking meat,
Mm-hmm.
our intestines, our guts shrank
Yep.
to make way for and again, I think I seen something about that theory being disproven,
You'll always find sources that prove and
but
disprove other
yeah,
ones. It's just the
yeah,
ones, from your own experience and from what I've seen, I believe
yeah.
that.
I mean, to me, it makes sense.
Yeah, again,
But
that's the whole
again,
reason why we're having
I'm
this
not.
discussion about ancestral eating is because every culture around the world has always included animal-based products in their food. And before the advent of agriculture, it was mostly animal-based calories that you'd have.
Yeah,
It was since I can't remember how long ago it was, but since the advent of agriculture, the human brain size has actually started decreasing.
yeah,
Because it was growing up until a point, and then agriculture came around. Then we started eating a lot more grains because that was the main thing. It was easy to grow grains, corns, oats, different types of cereals.
yeah. Well, that was one of my next notes. Was I'd written a question down here saying uh how much did fire and meat and food preparation uh change humanity? And the next one is all data shows that it's very hard for humans to survive on uncooked food.
Mm-hmm.
Meat versus vegetarian has I can't even read my own writing. Holy crap. Uh,
Well, as much as people like
has
to rail, like,
higher meat has a higher balance and energy levels than a vegetarian diet,
mhm.
especially if you're talking about thousands and thousands of years ago, possibly millions of years ago,
Oh yeah, you
where
can easily eat raw meat, but you can't really eat raw vegetables. Like all ancient cultures had the tradition of fermenting vegetables, so you're having that pre-digested point where, because we don't have the chambers in our gut in order
yeah,
to do this kind of fermentation, we had to do it outside the body. So
yeah,
that's when
so,
we started these fermentation practices.
yeah. So that was I wanted to see how much of a difference because I one of the things I was reading said that cooked versus uncooked, there was a massive difference
Hmm.
between both fruits and vegetables. Sorry,
Uh-huh.
both fruits and vegetarian diet and a meat diet, or
Yeah.
balanced, or both.
Well,
Um,
cooking helps to unlock the calorie as well, so
mhm.
it makes it better for you. Kills off certain things that your body doesn't or can't absorb properly.
Yeah.
Or
So
denatures, I should say, actually certain compounds in vegetables, like we were talking before about lectins and oxalates
yeah,
and
yeah,
phytic acids and stuff like that. So that gets broken down when you apply heat,
yeah,
making it safer for the body.
yep. uh, which the next study I looked up because I was like, that's interesting. So I looked
Hmm.
up efficiency levels between cooked and uncooked foods, and I found a test where um, they were using eggs. So
Hmm.
an uncooked egg versus a cooked egg. What do you think the difference in energy returned would be between those two products, between an uncooked egg and a cooked egg?
I don't know what the scale is, so I'm not really sure the difference if I don't know what the.
Well, it's just a flat difference in how much energy that gives you.
Well, I know the cooked one gives you more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
50% increase by
Okay.
cooking it.
Yeah. It like I said a minute ago, it cooking unlocks the calorie properly.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a
It,
huge difference.
yeah.
I mean,
It,
if
it it
if all
breaks
you
it
could
down to a
find to eat
point.
in one day was an egg and you couldn't cook it, and I mean, you're a caveman, you're active, probably what at least 19 hours a day, probably, because they probably
Hmm.
didn't sleep very much because they were always at threat.
Hmm.
Um, I would say they're probably more on the go 20 hours a day than anything. I would very much doubt they got 8 hours sleep. Uh,
Yeah. Well, the reason it works anyway is because you're breaking down the proteins in it.
yeah,
Like if to a point where your body can absorb it faster.
yeah,
Yeah. Same thing with fats.
yeah. So cooking the food generally softens food. Um,
Hmm.
and our bodies don't have a great, as you were saying before, they don't have a great digestive system like a cow or a pig or
Oh
whatever.
no, well we have a good digestive system, just not for plants.
Um, but
Like we can eat raw meat fine. You don't get as much out of it, but there are
uh,
some instances where you would prefer to have raw meat.
so cooking it and it basically, like you said, it opens up so much more
Yeah.
and break
Well,
down
it
the
can
proteins
also
and all the rest
damage
of
some
it.
of the vitamin contents in it. Well, but also it can also
But
increase it as well.
softening it also increases or decreases the amount of time that your body has to process the food.
Hmm.
So where um
So it's energy sparing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's saving energy, which is why it has such a higher return on top of the fact that it's unlocking more calories.
Yeah.
Um, which is crazy. Like you never think, oh, um, why did I cook this food? Like there's very few people I think in the world that that question will come into their head. Why did I cook this? Why didn't I just eat it? Well, oh look, beans. Why did I cook these? Why don't I
Because
just
it'll
eat
kill
them?
you if you don't.
This sausage. Why don't I just eat this? It
I
tastes
think a
fine
lot of
raw.
people understand that cooking does make it safer to consume. I
Yeah,
think that would be a thing that people do understand.
yeah,
You do have cultures again, like say Asian culture, Japan, sushi. Uncooked fish is still healthy if it's
yeah.
fresh,
But part
but
of that
if
as
it's not
well
so
is
fresh, cooking it is more safe.
how delicate fish is, which means that
You can eat
doesn't
raw
take
beef. What do they
it
call that?
doesn't take as much energy for your stomach to process raw fish as it would for a hunk of meat, like a steak
No,
or
well, you have things called like steak tartare, which is raw steak. As long as it's fresh, it's okay. And then there, again, in certain Asian cultures, you would have thin, uh, sliced beef that you would eat
yeah.
fine. And then you
Yeah.
also have raw organ meats that you eat as well, which are
But
fine.
bearing in mind back a million years ago or however long ago, to
Hmm.
make thin sliced beef would have been a real challenge.
No, I'm saying
You've
that's
been
just a
like
delicacy. Like years ago,
a
if
village
it's a
elder.
fresh kill, you do not need to cook it. It should be fine. It's only once it starts getting a bit older that you should probably cook it. I'm not saying that they never cooked fresh meat, but I'm saying it's safe enough to eat. Whereas if you compare that to vegetables,
Yeah,
you shouldn't eat raw vegetables ever.
yeah,
You need to
um,
cook them. You need to ferment them in some kind of way, pre-digest it, just so that your body can handle it more, properly. Otherwise, you're going to have digestive issues.
yeah. Um, so starch was a big part in the development of humans as well. Uh, cooked starch equals 30%, roughly 30% more energy returned on meat.
You mean starchy carbohydrates?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Starch itself, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, starchy carbohydrates. So that's talking about like tubers, potatoes, and things like that.
Um,
Because I would agree that potatoes are actually okay for you.
yeah,
Again, they have a lot of calories. You know, back in the day, it was less about micronutrients and macronutrients and more about the calorie. They didn't know exactly what a calorie was, but it was the energy that it gave you. So you actually felt
hmm
full and satiated whenever you had those kind of foods. Whereas if you were eating, like, vegetables have been modified so heavily back then. Like, you wouldn't recognize, if you've ever seen photos of old, like, corn, for instance. Like, you have these giant ears of corn now with hundreds of, little bits of corn on it,
yeah,
whereas before you'd have like one little, it was just a grass and would have like maybe 5 kernels on it.
yeah.
You couldn't really make that into a meal,
So
so you didn't get much of a return. Plus it was packed in with so much cellulose, which your body can't even absorb. So the amount of calories you got out of it was so minimal, there was no point in really eating it.
yeah,
So you would be going for the more calorie dense sources, like fatty animals, like the buffalo, if you're looking in America, or even further back, the giant mammoths that we hunted to extinction. But then
um,
if you're going for vegetables and stuff, you have your root vegetables like potatoes, which provided a lot of calories.
yeah. And we're easily found in certain
Yeah,
parts of the world.
but it wasn't the main diet. The main diet again was meat,
Meat.
because
Yeah,
that's the thing you could get all year round, whereas potatoes you can only get at certain times a year.
yeah. So speaking of corn, did you see what happened this week?
No.
You know Jason Derulo?
Yes.
Yeah,
I was going to say no. There was like, no, I know.
he,
Yeah.
yeah. Jason Derulo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he tried the TikTok corn eating challenge. She put a
Okay.
corn cob on a drill, and then
Oh, I saw somebody lose some teeth.
yeah, he shattered his two front teeth,
Mm-hmm.
broke them both. He's like,
Why would anybody do that? I saw a video of the guy, and the teeth literally flew out of his face. He,
yeah,
he, he
crazy,
lost all 4 of those front teeth.
crazy. I mean, it'll be fine as long as you're super careful with it. But the thing is, if your hand moves slightly close to your mouth, closer than it should, you're hitting like the actual what would you call it? Like the inside bit past the corn, the actual like sweet corn, the
Hmm?
husk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're hitting like the husk of the corn, and doof, there
No,
goes your teeth.
the husk is the outside, so the
That's the
actual
outside,
ear of
yeah.
corn.
Well, the actual, yeah, the actual bit on the inside, the hard, the tough, branchy
Yeah.
bit, you know. So, last thing on Early Man was whenever they learned to cook uh, their meat and their foods, because obviously they probably would have cooked some vegetables as well. I can't imagine they wouldn't have tried at least cooking, like, well, look, there's a fire, we'll put, I don't know, probably tried everything, probably berries, put them on sticks and held them over fires. Like that was their
Yeah.
marshmallows. Um, but
Probably had it with the meat. I wouldn't say that,
yeah, probably all sorts of things. Anything once they realized that,
Food is food.
yeah,
If you need it for survival, the way that I look at it is vegetables and fruit are survival foods.
yeah, yeah,
You eat them because you have to, not because they're good for you. Like if you need some calories, they'll do you in a pinch, but it's not
yeah,
something that you'd have all year round. Not like
yeah,
today.
yeah. They're more readily available than hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just
Well,
go,
hunting
oh,
is still readily available. Like there used to be an abundance of animals around.
yeah. But at the same time, while you're on your hunt, you can go like, oh, look, berries.
No, you
You
couldn't
know,
do that because you would never be able to tell whether or not they were poisonous. There's some berries that look like,
I mean,
they're
they would
perfectly
have
safe to eat, and then you end up not being able to digest anything because they've just shut down your intestine or your
they would have
stomach.
figured out through process of elimination.
Yeah, but they have to be very careful. That's the point.
Um,
Like you with berries, you can't just go outside and go, well, that looks close enough to something that I recognize. You
yeah,
need to make
but
sure that you're
that's what
100% sure.
that's what they would have done. They would have, like, from a young age, they would have been, and just through generations and generations of people dying from eating this specific thing, they would have, whenever they're really young, never eat this, never touch this. This is safe.
Hmm.
So,
But
I
you
mean,
can't say
everyone
that.
in a tribe would have known.
Yeah, but you
Uh,
can't. The same can't be said about animal foods. You can just, oh, there's an animal. As long as it's not horribly sick,
yeah,
I can kill it, cook it, eat it, and be fine.
They probably even would have killed it if it was sick and tried to eat it. To be fair.
No, well, my point is, unless like because of the whole SARS thing at the minute
Yeah.
with COVID-19, the condition of the animal and the healthy animal do actually matter. You wouldn't eat something that is diseased.
No. No.
Yeah,
Not definitely not now. But I mean,
yeah,
if you were
and
standing,
they would avoid it anyway. You don't want to eat the sickly animal. You
yeah,
see some frail, unless you're desperate for food, like I said before.
yeah. Well,
You would avoid that
that's
one.
what I
Go for
mean.
the thing
Yeah.
that would provide. You don't go for the thin sick thing. You go for the fat healthy thing because you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah. And it's just built into our genetic code.
Yeah.
It is, and you might call it greed, but it's survival.
Yeah.
So there was tests done on cooked versus uncooked food, which is going back to this.
Uh-huh.
How much time do you think it saves on chewing per day for
Oh, a lot.
cooked
A lot of
cooked meat
time.
versus uncooked meat?
Yeah. No,
And
I've
this
had
goes
some.
back to the energy returned from cooking food.
Hmm.
How much
Well,
time a day do you think on average it probably would have now this is all obviously estimates because we weren't sitting there with a notebook and a camera recording cavemen eating their uncooked meat and then getting to cook meat and you know
yeah. I'm not exactly sure at the time. I just know that, if you try eating a raw steak versus a
it'll
medium,
take a while.
yeah, I've had raw steaks and it's like, especially the fat, it's so gristly and chewy.
Yeah.
Whereas when you cook it, it breaks that down, renders out some of the fat, makes it easier to chew.
So they estimate that it would have saved up to 4 hours a day on chewing
Yeah,
whenever
well,
they
if you look at
yeah
cows and things, they need to constantly chew at their food all day, and then they swallow it, let it ferment a bit, regurgitate it back up, chew it some more, and then swallow it again. Imagine
yeah,
having to do that every day.
yeah they literally turn grass into a paste.
Mm-hmm. And they have flat grinding teeth, whereas we don't have that. They
Yeah.
say that our molars at the back are flat, but they're not. They're bicuspid. They have points on them.
Yeah.
They are flat-ish to
Yeah.
allow for grinding and chewing, but grinding your teeth isn't healthy for you. They try to get you to avoid doing that in your sleep.
Yeah. Well, that's because it flattens them, and then you can't eat meat because you've no sharpness to your teeth.
Yeah,
They're
it
all
also
flat.
exposes the dentin, and you can get more cavities that way.
Yeah.
Rots your
Yeah.
teeth.
Yeah. So, and that is even a point as well because there's been a lot of comparisons made from humans to monkeys, gorillas, all different
Gorillas, yeah.
kinds of monkeys.
Oh, gorillas eat nothing but leaves all day. So, if you want to be hench, you have to start eating vegetables. That's what the vegans say. It's like, yeah, but gorillas also eat their own shit. So,
And
I think I'll pass on that one.
there are species of ape that are extremely well known for eating meat.
Mm-hmm.
Even there's even
Baboons, they eat meat. And,
there's even carnivore species.
oh, yeah.
And my personal opinion is that you can't just look at what an ape's diet is and go, oh, well, that's our ancestor, because
We diverged from them.
it
long time
it
ago.
might be, but it's also not because if that was true in the purest sense, then they wouldn't be apes anymore.
Yeah. They would have evolved with us. They would have bigger
Yeah.
brains. And
Yeah.
they
They would
are,
be
fair enough, more sophisticated than other, mammals. But
yeah, but they're not on a human intellect level by any stretch of means.
no, it's taken
They're
them
not even
much
close.
longer to start using tools. They use sticks and things as tools, and they use projectile. They have rocks and stuff as projectiles, but
Yeah,
it's
but
not the same as what we have. Like
no,
their
it's-
shoulders aren't even developed the same way that ours are. We're designed to throw things. They're
Yeah.
not.
it's barely comparable.
Hmm.
And it takes far more energy for them to stand upright, whereas for us it's a basic stance.
Yeah, their posture isn't the same as ours.
Yeah. They've also mostly shorter legs and longer arms. So,
Mhm.
I mean, at one point we've developed from that, but really we've developed past that. So, comparing that is like there was probably a species of ape that we did come from, but they were probably very carnivorous, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, no. Well, we were started off as herbivores, sort of,
Yeah.
and then I think it was when the forests started declining, African savanna and stuff. It was more grasslands. We couldn't hide in the trees, and we needed to go out. And we, the way that we developed more Like no other primate can run the way that we run.
Yeah.
They don't have feet the way that we have them. We're designed for long distance running.
Yeah.
Sure, they may be faster on all fours, but they can't go as long as we can. That's also why we don't have as much hair, because it's the heat distribution, getting rid of, we sweat in a way to keep us cool. We have less hair so that, we don't get as hot.
Yeah. And thankfully our brains are big enough that we were able to develop clothes.
Yeah, for protection and warmth and things in different times of the year.
Yeah. So, I mean, that, for me anyway, covered most of the basic points of where diet came from, where our diet came from, what the human diet.
Yeah, I think the natural human diet is meat-based.
Yeah.
Like I said before in other podcasts, that the Weston A. Price Foundation have their principles on a healthy diet, which include plants and other things like that. But I would say they're okay if you ferment them. Fruit is a little bit better for you. But again, like you were saying, if you cook them, it makes it safer.
Yeah.
The only
And
problem with
easier
cooking
to
fruit is that
digest.
it also unlocks the sugar, makes it a little bit sweeter, but who cares?
Yeah.
I'm not saying never, ever eat plants, never eat things that make you happy. I'm just saying your primary diet should be a meat-based diet.
Yeah. And sometimes you just feel like, oh, you know what, really need some vegetables, or I really need some fruit. And that's probably your body telling you something. You're missing something.
I don't crave vegetables at all anymore. Not even a little bit. I used to miss salads, but
I
not even a little bit. I don't crave them at all.
I
I've had
rarely
fruit.
do,
I
but
do like fruit.
Yeah. I rarely do, but sometimes I'm like, I feel like, like, and it's very odd, especially for me who grew up having to eat as fruit and vegetables, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have eaten.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes at the very odd time, I'll be like, wow, I really, really want, I don't know, tomatoes.
That's a fruit. Think about vegetables,
Great
though.
tomato debate.
Yeah, no, but think about vegetables. The only vegetables that I would still probably eat are root vegetables and tubers, which are the high starchy stuff that we were talking about before.
Yeah, and if you get a
I
craving
enjoy
for
the
that, it probably
taste,
means that you're.
and I get more out of it. I feel fuller and I feel satiated after eating potatoes and things like that. But I don't eat lettuce. I don't eat broccoli. Don't eat any of those greens that they say is super important. Every now and again, I'll have like herbs and things, like basil, whatever way you want to pronounce it.
Basil.
Parsley or something, but it's in such small amounts, and it's really just to flavor the meat. So the focus is on the meat, not the vegetable as itself. And I think herbs are fine.
Yeah.
Or as the Americans like to say, herbs.
Herbs.
I'm an
I don't know
American,
where
say
that came
herb.
from.
I don't know either.
Yeah. It depends where you are in America as well.
No, I'm fairly certain it's all. I never got it. It's like, why have an H there if it's silent?
Why have a
Herbs
P
and
if
spices.
why have a P in the start of pterodactyl?
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Originally, was it called a pterodactyl or was it a pterodactyl? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. So I went from early man, and then I went on to. I was like, okay, what's a good time leap? So I went to Egyptian culture, ancient Egyptian. Now, from early man to ancient Egyptian, there is a huge time leap, because we've obviously figured out how to cultivate not animals and crops, right?
Mm-hmm.
We found out how to get water efficiently, how to build houses, how to make foods out of ingredients by this point.
Pterodactyl starts with a P because it's Greek.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was going to be something like a an ancient language or a different language, but
yeah, and we just pronounce it differently.
Yeah.
I had to look that up. Same with night,
like,
it's
you're
night
like,
is
wait a minute.
Germanic.
Yeah. Yeah, Knigget. Yeah. What is it? Is that in Life of Brian? No.
I can't remember.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It is in a Monty Python movie. They say
Yeah.
Knigget. We are the knights who say nee.